Good morning, once again, everyone. Glad you're here. I'm Jeff, if we haven't met, one of the team here at Friends. Hey, you know what? I'm always fat. Oh, by the way, chicken burgers for lunch, and I think there's vegetarian options as well. Stick around, be friendly, pretend you're friendly, pretend you're nice, just for a little bit. But it's great. We're trying to turn this from an audience that shows up on Sunday, looks in one direction, never talks outside of maybe the odd laughter or disapproving remark or facial feature, and walks out. We're trying to turn this into a community, into a family. And so these community lunches are a way to do that. All right, enough of that. I'm always fascinated by the reasons that we come up with to explain why life goes to why wife. Freudian slip there? No. Why life goes the way it does. We got lots of reasons, don't we? It's a lot like my golf game. I got a lot of reasons for why a game goes bad. Right from the time I hit that shot, I can say, I had a bad swing thought in my head just as I was hitting that ball. I don't think the guys I'm playing with give a rip what excuse I give. And then I'll be standing there, these greens are so slow. I can't believe I blew that shot. Someone's talking in my backswing. Did you hear that? That bird? Then when something goes well, it's like, I saw this tip on Instagram this week, and it's really clicking for me. No one gives a rip, but I'm coming up with these reasons why this is working, why this isn't working. Life is a lot similar. We have reasons for why we see someone very successful, and we start looking at them, trying to figure out, okay, what's their formula? There was a formula that they're following. In fact, if you go online, everyone's selling their formulas, right? For $59.95, you too can have the success I've had. Some people will say, fate brought us together. This is why we are here. This is why our life is turning this way. Some will blame bad luck. I saw an Instagram post the other day. A woman had posted a photo of her family, her immediate family and her extended family. It seemed like they were at a big wedding or something, but there was probably 30 of her family. Grandkids, grandparents, sisters, like the whole kit and caboodle. I was expecting dogs to be in the mix there too, but I didn't see any. But they're all together, and it was one of those idyllic fairy tale pictures in this beautiful garden. It's like everyone was color coordinated. All the kids are looking straight into the camera, smiling. My family photos never looked that way, never. But here they are. And this picture, you just look at it, you can't stop looking at it. You're going, holy cow, is that ever beautiful? Everyone's looks like they're having the time of their life. So she posts this thing, and then right at the end, she uses a hashtag blessed. Pissed me off. I don't know what that hashtag or what that statement means to you when you hear it. Blessed. But to me, when I see or hear that, sometimes I hear someone saying that they believe she was experiencing this wonderful life, this wonderful family, the health, the prosperity, the success, the kids, all happy, all going well, everything going right, because God had somehow shown her and her family favor and rewarded their family, had blessed their family. It just bothered me. Because if God is responsible for doing that, for kind of looking in on this family and saying, all right, today's your lucky day. We're going to take care of those kids. Good attitudes all the way around. No illness, no disease. We're going to kind of ramp up the jobs here for you guys. We're going to generate some real wealth within this family. You guys are going to have all that you could imagine. Hashtag blessed. You can tell my facetiousness, sorry. If that's how God works, if there is some supernatural entity that's doing this, surely God would prioritize making life a little more tolerable for a few families in other parts of our war-torn world. I'm thinking about the innocent children in Gaza right now, Ukraine. I mean, he could throw them a bone or two, couldn't he? He could provide a little extra protection. He could keep those hospitals from being bombed. He could keep those kids from having to live lives without parents. I was in the hospital a little while ago visiting a cancer patient who was way too young. It makes me think, man, God, if you actually hashtag bless people around here, here's a kid. Please. I'm sure everyone in this room, everyone listening to this podcast, has a story where you think, if God's in the hashtag bless business, please, here's a good one for you. Don't worry about that over there. Here's a big one. Hashtag bless bothers me when it comes to reasons people give for their life going their way. But in the Christian tradition, this is a popular understanding. And I know, I've talked with people about this. They quote verses. Every good and perfect thing comes from above. They talk about verses from within the Bible that seems to cast a picture. Now, we've talked about conceptions of God. We've talked about different ways that we understand the more than out there, what the role that this entity, if it exists, might play in our world. It's common for parts of the Christian tradition to believe that God, the more than, is doing something, turning wheels, pulling strings, making things happen in our world. But we've tried to be on. In fact, we just did a series not all that long ago. It's called "Are You There, God?" And if you're interested in this topic, we went into real depth on this topic and different conceptions of God. If you hold this conception of God, that He does that, He moves in and fixes things, that sometimes when things are going well, it's because God got involved. That conception of God does create problems. It makes it hard to reconcile all the injustices, like I've just been talking about. When things go sideways to the wrong people, when bad things happen to good people, when good things happen to bad people, all of a sudden, parts of that turn God into this capricious, favor-playing God. It's like someone knew someone had a big enough prayer chain, had enough people praying that twisted God's arm. Oh, okay, I'm going to throw him a favor. But this single mom over here who didn't know many spiritual people, who couldn't get that prayer chain really rolling, didn't have enough people on her team, God's hands were tied for her. Creates problems. If it is God who is continually rewarding and punishing various good and bad actors in this world, sometimes it can feel like God's priorities are out of whack. It can make him feel like a real jerk, or her, or it, whatever it is. Which is why this morning I wanted to explore a belief that explains why things happen in our world through a different lens. And that doesn't believe or or lean on this idea that there is a supernatural force that's turning the wrenches in our world behind the scenes. What's interesting is that this belief sits outside our Christian tradition. Now, when I say our, I'm assuming wrongly that everyone within this room comes from the Christian tradition or holds to some kind of Christian belief. I'm really speaking for Vince and I. Because we grew up in the Christian tradition. And much of what we talk about here on Friends Church, most of everything, it kind of predominantly emanates from within the Christian tradition. Not because we believe it's the only tradition that holds value, not because we believe it has the truth and no one else does, because we're familiar with it. That's why. And it resonates with us. That's why we share from it. But we thought it'd be really interesting to step outside the tradition for a series and talk about some stuff that sits outside of Christianity that has some interesting beliefs and concepts that are generating beautiful things in other people's spiritual journeys. We thought, wouldn't that be cool? Don't be fooled. We have learned a lot from other traditions, and there is a lot out there that we have found incredible value from, that we've incorporated. If you've been coming for a while, you know we are committed to growing and learning. We call this a spiritual gym for a reason. Come in for a workout. You don't need your ears tickled about something you already believe and just, oh yeah, well, that's really nice. I really like that because I agree with everything. No, we talk about stuff that gets sometimes your back up. And you go, wait, I don't know if I agree with that. Good. Wrestle with it. And maybe you will walk out of here going, you know what, they have a point there. Or, nope, not buying it. Cool. Because everyone has a unique spiritual journey. We believe that. But grow, learn, wrestle. Is what I'm working with, believing, living out, is it working? Sometimes you don't know if it's working until all of a sudden you step over here and you start contemplating something. You're going, wait a second, that's different than what I believe. Wait, that makes a lot of sense. Wait a second. This is healthy. This is what working out in the gym does. It gets you wrestling, works up a sweat. You start going, that's uncomfortable. Yeah, great, good. So, anyways, that's what we want to do. Get you a little uncomfortable. I've been wanting for a while to research karma. How many of you are going to talk about karma this morning coming in? Just curious. Okay, all 6 of you, 8 of you. Good. Karma is not a Christian concept necessarily. But I hear it talked about all the time. You see some driver weaving in recklessly in between traffic, and there's all these people screaming, giving them the finger, and all of a sudden it comes over the hill, and there are the cops, and people are driving by. Karma's a bitch, baby. Huh? How many of you have even said that? Yeah, it's like payback, baby. I hear karma referenced again and again, and to be honest, there's parts of that I'm going, I kind of like that concept. I wonder what's to that. So as we step into the series, I told Vince, I want to study karma. I want to talk about it. I want to see if there's something to it. I don't know. Karma really is a central principle that can be found in both Hinduism and Buddhism. It's a Sanskrit term. It literally means action or doing. In the Buddhist tradition, karma refers to action that's driven by intention. You have a good intention, and then you act on that intention, and that action produces some kind of consequence down the road. This is kind of how karma works. If you have good thoughts and good intentions that lead to good actions, and intention is important. You can't just stumble upon doing something good and then something good, that wasn't karma. But if you intend to do something good, so I'm learning all the ins and outs of this, but you intend to do something good, you go and do it, and it starts a chain of reaction at some point. Karma gets kind of started. You're planting these little karmic seeds that one day become fruit. It's kind of pure cause and effect. Now, you can do that in a good way, or you can do it in a bad way. You produce good karma, you can produce bad karma. This is a belief. There's no hashtag blessed explanations here. There's no other entity that's turning the wrenches for you. You create the good or the bad in your life and in your world. I have to admit, when I started into karma, I didn't realize how interconnected it was to the belief in reincarnation. This was interesting to me. Which basically says, look, your good and bad karma doesn't just end when you die. That may be good news, that may be bad news. If the net karma at the end of the day, when your number comes up, is negative, I got bad news for you. Because in the next life, you're dropping down a level. Essentially, they say there's 6 levels. Humans start at level 3. You go up to demigod and then God. If you go down to animal, and then there's a couple more levels underneath that. Basically, this just keeps on repeat until you figure it out and you start moving up the thing and you eventually experience nirvana. I didn't know that it was all connected to that, and to be honest, when I started into the reincarnation thing, it started losing me. I was like, powering out here. Something got I don't know. I think the fact that somehow within this concept of karma and reincarnation, there's a way of explaining why cancer shows up in someone, that maybe that's a direct result of former actions they had in a former life or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, ha-ho. So anyways, most people that I talk to when I've talked about karma, they don't necessarily recognize that there is that strong connection to reincarnation. I like the cause and effect nature of karma. I like the fact that when something is going wrong in our world, people aren't pinning it on some jerk God or on the devil. There's all kinds of different beliefs there. But ultimately, humanity has to stare themselves square in the face and say, we've created a lot of this mess. But I think when I talk with people, they love being able to connect good and bad actions to the somewhat immediate future or longer-term future. When I got into this, actually, to be honest, bad karma wasn't really of interest to me. I wasn't looking for explanations why things go wrong. It was the good karma that really attracted me most, if I'm truthful. I loved the idea that perhaps there is this belief that if you do good things, you're creating some kind of goodness. You start planting things and things start popping up down the road that are the fruit of your work, that leads to something great. I thought, I want to see what they have to say about this. Because that's exciting to me. Take God turning the wrenches of everything good thing. No. You have power. You have the ability to do something good that will create something great down the road. And it's in your hands. I grew up in a tradition where people just prayed that God would do good things. Just like, I think he might be waiting on us. I'm not sure. I wanted to see what Buddhism had to say to that, because, man, if we could take the capricious God out of the mix, this might be actually something I could utilize. To be honest, even as I'm talking about it, I'm not talking about something that is opposed to what Christianity is about. Maybe I was just trying to find similarities to what I see in parts of Christianity in Buddhism. Because the truth is, man, this is what I saw Jesus talking about all the time. It's what he role modeled. He may not have used the words karma, but man, he was talking about and role modeling a way of life that would produce incredible karma. He was challenging people all the time. Love your enemies. Oh, shoot, anyone can love the people that love you. They're scratching your back. No big deal. Love someone who doesn't give a rip about you. In fact, who wants to hurt you. That is a message in this day that we live in today, I think we need more of. Jesus was all about, look at you plant seeds here. Something good can come out of it. Be willing to serve others. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Plant karmic seeds, something great will happen. Live considerate and kind and generous lives. Forgive others. This is his whole message. Jesus could have been Buddhist in some ways, I suppose. All actions that technically would produce beautiful karmic fruit in a Buddhist's eyes was his message. Producing karmic fruit. Jesus, man, that was everything he was about. He'd say, oh, you're worried about who might be the real troublemakers out there teaching false things? Just watch their lives. Watch what they do. Watch how they live. Good trees can't produce bad fruit. See, it's same kind of language. Karmic fruit, Jesus talked about fruit. He says, yeah, a bad tree can't produce good fruit, nor can a good tree produce bad fruit. Watch the fruit on their trees. He says, you'll know the fruit by how they act. Jesus used a lot of cause and effect language in his teaching. One thing that was interesting to me as I stepped into, especially the Buddhist side, I kept looking for, but why build the karmic fruit? What's the motivation behind that? What is that leading to? Now, I don't want to pretend that I'm some expert in Buddhism, and if you're here and you've invested yourself heavily in it, I welcome you to come and correct me after, and I will post my corrections, okay? What I was hoping to find underneath it was a vision of a better world, a world that could perhaps end wars in families and in neighborhoods, between tribes of political dissension. People who would give of themselves to something deeper and wider, not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of a larger community, of others. I was hoping to find that in the core motivation. But everywhere I was reading, it all seemed to come back that kind of the underlying motivation, again, it seems, the underlying motivation is you invest yourself in planting karmic seeds, and this is your ticket to nirvana one day. This will prevent you from moving down on the 6 layers, and instead will move you up. I have to say, it seemed a little self-centered. It seemed a bit like, look it, if I want what's best for me, this is what I'm going to have to do. Now, maybe this is just the reality of the human condition. We're the only way that we'll be motivated to live lives of kindness and generosity and selfless action in our world. It's by offering some kind of reward system that will be waiting for you at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, Christianity has those too. But if I just look at the life of Jesus, aside from all the commentary, I just see someone that gave of himself so selflessly. And as a result, he created a movement that's still smoking fast and hard today. People bought in going, there was something so profoundly spiritual about a man that seemed willing to give of himself to the point of dying for the sake of something better, for the sake of others. That, to me, is one of the most profound things. He said, "The greater love has no man than he would lay down his life for someone else." I just go, I don't think our world changes without some of that in it. I look across this room and I somehow imagine all the relational dynamics that each of us are engaged in our own families, in our own workplaces, and communities. And I think about the little divisions, the fights that are going on, the phone calls that haven't happened in years. I think about the way that we've experienced divorce in so many different ways other than marriage, relationally, the fracturing that we're watching in our society. I don't think it heals without the kind of love that says, I want to put out something good into our world, and I don't need it necessarily coming back. Because I think it will help more people than just me. That's what I went looking for when I was studying karma in the Buddhist and Hindu traditions. And I have to say, I came back a little bit wanting. And maybe in some ways, I came running home to Mama again. To Jesus. Different form of Mama, I suppose. Something about his life. I don't know about if you've seen this story, but it rings of something so deeply spiritual. It's a story of Nicholas Winton. Has anyone heard of him? He was a London stockbroker in 1938. 1938, the war was right on the verge of exploding. The Germans had moved into Czechoslovakia. There were camps of Jewish people already formed, people on the run. He took a trip from the UK into Czechoslovakia, and he ended up seeing one of these camps, and he walked into it and began talking with the families that are in this camp. They are literally running for their lives. They know the Nazis are moving in. The parents of young children all huddled around have nothing. They're just struggling to survive, but they know that something really bad is about to go down. These parents start looking at Nicholas. They recognize he is not from there. And they begin asking him, begging him, will you take my children back to your country? Get them out of here. We don't have a good feeling about this. Would you please? He is hearing these stories and he is so disturbed. Like, he's sick. He's looking at these kids. So he starts reaching out to his government back in the UK, going, look, we got a desperate situation here. We can help some kids. Would you allow possibly the temporary adoption of some kids? If I can find families in the UK, will you help us get these kids out of here? Because bad things are about to happen. It's crazy, the timing of me reading this and when you think about our world right now. UK government agrees. Sure, you find the families that'll take these kids in. Can you imagine a parent, how freaked out you'd have to be to tell someone you barely even know, take my kid, will you please? Take him to your country. Desperate times. So he gets on the phone and he starts lining up all kinds of families to take these kids. Trains shipment of kids back home. It was an elaborate system that he built. Very quickly, though, war was announced, the borders closed, and everything he was trying to do from that point on got shut down. He returned back to the UK, and literally in the frenzy and the insanity and the horrendous nature of World War, everything that he'd done just kind of got snuffed. Yes, kids got moved out, but then there was no more. He took that chapter of his life and he just shelved it. In fact, he had this massive scrapbook of all these kids that he had arranged for adoptions. He closed it up and he put it in his attic. He later married, and his wife never even knew about that chapter of his life. 50 years later, 1988, his wife is up in the attic, and she comes across the scrapbook. And she says, Nicholas, what is this? He was still heartbroken over all the kids that he had originally lined up that weren't able to get out. All the parents of those kids that got adopted were wiped out in the war. Everything went different than what he had planned. It was painful for him to even talk about it. She was so blown away as she's looking through all these kids that got adopted. She's like, oh my God, this is amazing. She shared it with some friends. All of a sudden, news broke out. Next thing you know, the BBC is reaching out to Nicholas, saying, would you come? We heard about your story. Would you just come and appear on this show? Just as an audience member. Live, it was called That's Life, current affairs show. So there he is. He's sitting in the... If you've seen the clip, it is gripping. But they begin telling the stories of these children that got adopted in 1938. And he's listening in the crowd. He's going, oh, yeah. And so the host of the show starts telling the story of this one little girl. She was like maybe 5 years old or whatever, and she got adopted by this family, blah, blah, blah. And she said, and the host says her name, and Nicholas's eyes are bright, remembering that. And then she says, actually, she's here tonight. And she looks down, she says, actually, Nicholas, she's sitting right beside you. She grabs onto his hand. It says, thank you. And he's like, in a second, he's seeing the karmic fruit play out right there. And he's like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. It's like he hadn't even contemplated that. And then they told another story. Actually, he's sitting beside you and he goes, what? And he reaches out. And then she says, if you're here today and you owe your life to Nicholas Winton, would you stand up? All these people began standing up. He starts looking around. At one point, he stood right up and looked. 669 kids he saved. There was only a handful at that television setting. But they say now the families of those 669 number in the tens of thousands. Because of a frickin' guy that just looked at a problem and said, and you know what? He never got paid. He spent an enormous amount of his own money. He just invested himself in something because he could, and he cared. That, to me, is the heart of taking water that we talk about here all the time. That is on another level. That's not you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Hey, what will this mean for me in the next life? Oh, is there heaven, some that's waiting for me if I do this? None of that. It's I give a shit about someone. And I think something I could do right now might move a dial at some point for someone. I know I'm passionate about this. And I get emotional thinking about it. Probably because in my life, I experienced a Nicholas Winton. And his name was Mr. Klein. And I've talked about him here before. But he did that for me. I wasn't saved from war, no. My mom, she was a single mom. My parents divorced when I was 5. Mr. Klein was the dad of my best friend. I met Mr. Klein in grade 3. Mr. Klein made me an honorary member of his family. I spent more time over at the Kleins than he paid for more meals, taught me how to throw a football, he taught me how to mow the lawn, taught me how to tie a tie. He was there when I first shaved for the first time. I don't know why he did it. Because I tell you, as a teenager, I didn't thank him enough. That guy just poured into my life. There was times he pulled me over and he said, don't you ever talk to that person like that again. I said, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Klein, I'm sorry. He's like, open the door for those women. Okay. He just treated me like his own. He had nothing to gain by it. That to me is the spirituality that just, it smells and tastes so good. And it's world-changing. I know it because I'm here for the largest time, the way I parented and the way I was a husband to Kathy was largely fashioned around what I saw in Mr. Klein. I might as well have had a WWMK bracelet on, man. It was like, what would Mr. Klein do? And he made a difference. And I'm betting that all of us, in some way or another, you can look at someone that you watched, a teacher, a coach, a neighbor, an uncle, who just did uncommon things, and they had nothing to gain by it. That, to me, is the spirit of Jesus. And to be honest, there's a part of karma there that I go, yes, you make #blessed, right? You do it. You pour in the work and watch what happens with it. All right. I don't know how this lands for you, but man, I'm telling you, this just makes sense to me. And that's why I loved the concept of karma to begin with. I'm going, you create something that long-term leads to great consequences. I don't need to be fixated on why bad things happen in our world. I'm fixating on why good things happen in our world. And I think I'm part of that formula. And I hope you will be too. I hope this week you'll think deeply, that your spider senses, you allow your spidey senses to tingle around the opportunities where all of a sudden you got an opportunity to plant a little seed, to give of yourself in some way. And I hope it costs you something. And I hope you don't get any recognition for it. And I hope you don't go looking for it. I hope you just do it and trust it. Okay, that's all I got. Man, that was like a 28-pound baby I delivered this week. I got into this thing, I went, oh, right, we're on to something good. And then I got into part of it, I'm like, oh, that's not good. It's still there. There's some goodness in that. All right, let's get out and plant some karmic seeds. Let's take water to our world. Let's take water to our world, huh? And watch what it does. Have a great week, everyone. See you next week.